Did you feel the mountains tremble? Did you hear the oceans roar? When the... Oh, no, remember the words.
All right, welcome back to Holy Schism, the worst Christian podcast.
And the only one I listen to.
Yeah, the only one worth listening to.
I'm Andrew. I'm a Catholic.
I'm Sam. I'm a Protestant. Andrew, how much do you know about Hillsong Church?
Hillsong Church, very little. I think Justin Bieber went there at one point.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep.
Hillsong, the music. And
as everybody knows that.
I'm not like really sure what even the difference is between the music and the church.
That's a good question. That's a good starting point. So, like, Hillsong Church obviously came first. I think it was called Church of the Hills, Sydney, Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pretty sure Brian Houston, the founder's dad, was the pastor of it initially. Or no, he might have been the pastor of another church. Anyway, Brian Houston's really like, he's kind of the big figurehead of Hillsong, like the founding pastor of Hillsong proper. Until recently was the lead pastor. He was embroiled in a bunch of scandals. But anyway, we'll get there in a bit. But he had a vision, I guess, back in the 80s that like Hillsong was going to be a church that would write music that would be sung in churches around the world. And that's pretty much what happened. And so you're probably familiar with the artists Hillsong Worship, Hillsong United, and then there's this kind of crappy like youth pop band called Hillsong Young and Free as well. But they all write worship songs
I know some of their stuff.
Yeah.
But I know the old stuff.
Right. Yeah. You'd probably
Darlene Zschech.
Yes. Yeah. She was kind of the
shout to the Lord, all the earth, let us sing. That kind of stuff, right?
The 90s and early 2000s probably. Yeah.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
Like how does that other one go? So close, I believe you're holding me now. Do you know that one? In your hand.
Yeah. I don't know it well. I don't know what it's called. But
that was one. The Potter's Hand. All those.
Yeah,
My Redeemer Lives.
So did you sing those songs a lot in church growing up?
A little bit. I mean, I think they came out in the 90s, right? I think.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. Whatever. Yeah.
So when we had moved up to Bruce County and started going to the Catholic church, it was like my cousin was running the youth group and it was more evangelical. That would have been the early 2000s, and so there was a lot of that stuff that we were doing, before we got into some of the more recent stuff.
So it was more sung in your youth group rather than like at mass on Sunday.
Yeah. Although something like Shout to the Lord, that took off. Like they would still sing that,
Yep.
Because it kind of, it's, it's like a lot of that stuff. It's meant to be easy to sing, I guess, right?
It seems like songs, actually, this is just a critique of evangelicalism, I guess, but like it seems like songs have a longer shelf life in the Catholic Church. Like it seems like you'll sing a song and not care about how old it is, like for a long time.
Yeah.
Like the songs don't really expire.
Even some of the more recent hymns, like I was playing earlier, like Be Not Afraid, like that was written after the Second Vatican Council. It was written in probably, the 60s and 70s. But like most Catholics have it at their funeral. Like it is,
really?
It's yeah. Huh. So it's, it's not old, but yeah, I think it'll be around for another little while, So anyway, I think you're right. So Hillsong music. Okay. So now the Hillsong Church today.
Yeah.
Where are they?
So like the bands are still, successful in putting out music, but Hillsong Church has like really gone downhill. There was a documentary that came out last year that exposed a lot of stuff. They've had a couple really high profile kind of moral failings by their pastors. So one of them was Carl Lentz, who was the lead pastor of Hillsong New York City up until 2020, I want to say.
Is that the Justin Bieber?
That's the Bieber pastor.
With the big glasses and the ripped jeans.
Yeah, the one that Joe Rogan was making fun of on his show. You've seen that episode?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to say that on this podcast?
You can say it. I'm going to censor it, but yeah, you can say that. Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah, we are allowed to cuss on this podcast. I would say that's between you and God, that decision, and but I will censor cuss words.
Okay, fair enough. Or we could self-censor.
We can self-censor too.
What the... right? That
Right.
sort of
You can
thing.
do that. Yeah. That's good. That's a little.
Joe Rogan was talking about the.
I was quoting Joe Rogan, so it's okay for me to say it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So. That was Carl Lentz, and so he had an extramarital affair with this woman that was obviously not his wife. There was some other allegation against him too, that he had groped possibly like another pastor's wife. Yeah. So like, yeah, that was his downfall, and then Brian Houston had some he's been embroiled in controversy for a while because his father had sexually molested boys. Oof. And Brian Houston was like allegedly, he's in court right now, but like involved in covering it up basically and like paying hush money.
I see.
So that he's been in like legal battles over that. And then, so he stepped away actually as the senior pastor, but he was still on staff at Hillsong. And then something came out about him having basically gone into another woman's hotel room. Nothing happened, but he alleges that he was like high on like pain medicine or something like that and acted irrationally, but like it was improper for a senior pastor to be doing what he did. So like you can read about it. It's not really important to this current story. But so a lot of this stuff was exposed in this documentary. There's been a lot of shady stuff around them too. Even like theologically, like they would have critics that would probably say that they fall into like prosperity gospel a bit. I have been like, I just don't like the way they do church, to be honest. Like, but my criticisms are very service level. I just find their worship style just is inherently like consumeristic. They platform people who are like, you know, well dressed. Their whole production value thing is more about like having a rock concert feel. Like I'm talking about not just their band. I'm talking about their church services are like this. And because
they're big, they're like quintessential mega church, right?
Yeah, like it's funny because like they are and they aren't. They definitely are in Australia, but the way they operate in America has been very actually similar to how like my church C3 operates, where you know they plant a church, they are largely volunteer run. There are people on staff, but like they would rent out like venues and set up church every Sunday.
I see.
So it's not like most Hillsong churches like don't have their own permanent building, at least not like the bigger one. Like Hillsong New York City, where Carl Lentz pastored, was setting up at like these concert venues, like not stadiums, but like club, like 1,000 cap venues and stuff like that to do church. So but it really was more like a show. Like,
yeah,
you could definitely compare it to that. Like it's kind of appropriate and a bit on the nose that they like did it in concert venues. But so the latest controversy though, I'll kind of read it to you. It's alleging that they've had this kind of just shady financial practices here. So basically other churches would kind of pay very large sums of money to be a part of the Hillsong family, which I'll be honest, like is not as bad as it sounds on the face of it. Like our church C3, like we pay money to be a part of the C3 movement. We give money back to the mother church. So, and that money does go to like funding missions that the church does. Like it's not uncommon for denominations to like take a fee. Now, a lot of these churches that were paying Hillsong fees were like, not really, they weren't like actually Hillsong churches. They were like other churches that were like saying they're part of the Hillsong family. So this is a weird thing too with like late stage Protestantism or evangelicalism, because we don't even like to operate within like denominational structures anymore. We like to be like families and networks and like this kind of a thing, you know? So, but the part of this that stuck out to me the most.
We also, just on that note, like Catholics do that too.
No, I get that.
We also pay to the diocese, like each parish pays. Mm-hmm. We just have a fancy name for it. It's called Cathedraticum.
Oh, that is a fancy name.
Yeah, so there's that. But we also had, like recently in Hamilton, there was a big capital campaign, for instance, in that diocese of Hamilton. So it was like, you know, but the idea was that it's kind of the haves giving to the have-nots, right? So parishes would raise a certain amount of money, a percentage of it would stay in their parish for capital upgrades. You know, like you need to have the roof replaced or something, and then a portion of it would go to diocese, and then they would other parishes that were applying for a project would have some funds too. This is too long. You can cut this out if you like.
That's fine. No,
Anyway,
that's helpful.
Just to say that that whole idea of giving money to head office, so to speak, is happens in the Catholic world as well.
Yeah. So I guess the more interesting part of this this scandal to me was actually more around their kind of quid pro quo scheme they seem to have with other mega pastors. So I'll just read a snippet from this article here, but it says they would also collect generous honorariums of up to $20,000 or more for a couple of 30-minute sermons, according to a 44-page summary of the whistleblower's report. Mega church celebrity pastors can earn over $1 million per year from this, quote, scam, added the report, which was completed in October 22. In essence, one megachurch pastor who is the founder of their own church, the host church, invites a founding celebrity pastor of another megachurch to speak at their church or event. And for this, the host pays for business or first-class flights for the guest pastor, along with luxury accommodation, restaurant meals, gifts, and green room comfort, the whistleblower explains. The icing on the cake is the payment of a generous honorarium, around $10K to $20K or more, to the visiting celebrity pastor to preach a couple of 30-minute sermons. In addition, the visiting pastor receives royalties from the sale of his or her resources at the church service or event. This arrangement is then reciprocated. That is, the original celebrity pastor guest subsequently invites the celebrity pastor from the host church to come to their church or event to preach, and offers all of the same benefits they had received. So the people paying for it is, of course, the people in the
tithe
to the church, right? So it's all tax-free money. It's like, it's not appearing as part of their salary because it is an honorarium. And so it would, I think what they can do is kind of get out of some of the closer scrutiny that comes with like when the pastor's salary appears on the annual giving report or like the annual church financial report. Yeah. So it doesn't look as bad, but like they have this whole network planned where like,
so it's not illegal.
It's not illegal, but it's like,
it's dishonest to
I think
people
it's
who are showing up every week.
Totally. It's not good stewardship of their money. People are getting rich off of this.
Yeah.
I could do a lot with 10K right now.
Oh, it sounds like a sweet deal. Yeah. It's like, hey, fly me down. I guess,
yeah,
recycle dust off the old sermon there. And
totally. Why not? I mean, like, just for context here, like we have had not a celebrity pastor by any stretch, but a like fairly high profile speaker come to our church before. And the honorarium for that is in the hundreds of dollars, not the tens of thousands of dollars for that. Like, it's not like, I think people should be compensated fairly for what they do. But like, there is something so icky about just getting very wealthy off of preaching the good news.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's so, okay. Well, I don't want to get, too personal, but
sure.
I mean, you preach on occasion.
Yeah.
At your congregation.
Yep.
And so I'm curious, do you get an honorarium for preaching?
No, I don't.
You don't. Okay.
Which I don't expect one. Like, I'm a volunteer at the church, and we are a small church, and this is just like one of the ways that I use my gifts and talents to help our church. That's how I see it.
It's so foreign. I mean, obviously, Catholic priests, it's a whole different ball game, like religious, who are part of a religious community, they'd have a vow of poverty, but even the diocesan priests, like, it's so if there's like a priest filling in, there is a stipend,
sure,
that's given, but it's like $50 or something.
Yeah, costs money to live. Really, you had to drive to get here, whatever.
It's really like nothing. Yeah. So this is, it's kind of wild, but I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said they're in this kind of consumerist mindset, right? It's kind of like,
it's like they're entertainers.
Yeah, I actually think if they published that, that this was what they were collecting and all that, and how much money they were making, like, I don't think their attendance would drop off. I really don't. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. You pay to go see. If you're in that mindset, I mean, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying you pay to see Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
You pay.
For some people, it wouldn't. There's a certain type of person that would not be bothered by that at all, and would be won over by like any rhetoric that would say otherwise. That
like you said, the prosperity folks.
yeah.
Like people go see Joel Osteen and
Right. They believe that the blessing, the wealth, is a sign of God's favor.
Yeah.
So like there are
Messed up.
And I don't think a lot of these churches would engage in kind of what I would call like a soft prosperity gospel, where they just don't outright reject the prosperity gospel, and they do preach messages that can easily be interpreted as like God wants to give you your dreams and all this stuff, and really it's more like motivational speaking than it is like
I'm so curious, like how do those people interpret like the widow giving their last coins, like how can you
they would interpret it as like this is me giving license to tell my congregation to tithe more.
I guess.
You know what I mean? That's like the hard part of it. That's why it's such like snake oil, because I've known a lot of people that just like watch the prosperity stuff all the time, and it's like it's the same mindset as like buying lottery tickets. Who buys lottery tickets the most? Like it's people who don't have a lot of like financial like upward mobility in life. You know what I mean? Like and so the message of like you have hope of getting wealthy if you like keep doing these things, like that is very compelling to a lot of people. I don't know. Yeah, like and I don't want to pitch it like that's a bit stereotypical, because I think some of that is largely the product of a bygone era. Like there's the only people that sit and watch televangelists are like people our parents' age and older. Like it's not really people our age that sit and watch Joel Osteen. That's kind of a dying thing. But they will scroll on social media and watch influencers and whatnot. And in a lot of ways, these pastors kind of do take the role of like an influencer. Like who are the new influencers that people watch now? It's like, Joe Rogan would be like one of them. This is like a thought leader that is selling me a lot of ideas, and even like a Gary V or something like. Yeah.
Okay. So, the other thing I'm interested in is, okay, again, part of the reason I go to the connection with somebody like Taylor Swift or something is like you say, like there is a concert element. So one question, are the musicians getting paid a lot at these services? And two, how much does the celebrity preacher depend on the music for the appeal?
Sure.
Like it's one thing to fly in celebrity preacher. It's like, oh, their preaching is like amazing or whatever. But like, it kind of helps that the opening act was, Yeah,
there's a lot of interesting dynamics there actually. So like to answer the first question about how much are the musicians getting paid, that really depends. Like I think so if you're a musician on the level of like a Hillsong United, right?
Yeah.
You are like you're a recording artist at that point. Like you are, it's not just like I think some of them might lead worship at churches, but a lot of them are like their side gig is like, well, probably their main gig really in terms of paying the bills is their recording artist career. So they will go on tour the same as a popular musician. They will sell albums. They will get played on the radio. Like I don't necessarily think getting played on the radio and like selling music digitally is necessarily getting people a lot of royalties these days. So I genuinely I have no concept of how much a musician makes off of that. Although obviously if you're very high profile, I've got to think you're doing pretty well for yourself. Like Hillsong, I've seen Hillsong United before. Like they're a stadium act, the same as like everybody goes to see them there because they're probably the biggest worship band in the world, I would say. But so the second part of that is like how much are they relying on the music? And just to finish that off, so like some churches, worship leaders are paid, like they're on staff. Mm-hmm. Other churches like ours, no, like we're all volunteers. Like I play on the worship team, and we just have our availability. We send the leaders in charge of worship our schedules, and they make a band and make a set, and we show up and rehearse it and play it on Sunday, and it's all volunteer led. So yeah, depends on the size of the church. Second part, the reliance on the music. Yeah, in the sense, there is definitely that element where like the band, I guess cynically, that worship band is kind of the opening act to like the main act, which is this preacher. And this is the thing about Protestantism, which is very unfortunate, I think, is that we've replaced the sacraments with these events. So like the worship, and then like the feeling, the high I get from that's like a sacrament. That has replaced the Eucharist. Because my church is actually pretty unique. We actually take the Eucharist every week. And a lot of churches,
that's kind of odd for a Protestant.
Yeah,
church,
like
right?
some
To have a
Protestant
communion
churches,
service?
depends on the denomination. Some are that's pretty normal, but like a lot of them, it's like a once in a while thing. Like maybe once a month, or like only on Easter. Or like it's like Communion Sunday. It's like, well, no, that should be every Sunday, if you ask me.
Do you always, when you're having communion service, do you, like for the actual communion, do you have music that accompanies it?
Yeah, we usually have our keyboardist up there playing while we.
It's usually just instrumental?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's because like we don't come up to receive it. We all have like we have these little cups, convenience cups with the bread. You've probably seen these before.
Yeah.
That's what we have. So
because I'm slight tangent, but
sure.
I was part of this workshop that Diocese of Hamilton ran. It was a 2-part workshop for musicians, and I got invited because I help out with music at the church there and in Kitchener, and it was really good because they were kind of helping refocus musicians on, what is the intention behind a lot of the music that's done in Catholic worship.
Yeah.
And one of the things this was a big change after the Second Vatican Council, as I understand it, was during communion, there's meant to be a communion, either a chant of the antiphon or a hymn.
Right.
And the whole idea is, as we join united as one, we join our voices together, we sing together, right? So the onus is on the music director to, pick something everyone knows, pick something that's easy enough to sing.
Yep.
Right? Because, and a lot of folks have, struggled with this because they see it as a private devotional moment or whatnot, but it's actually like, no, we should join together. We should sing as we're walking up to receive communion. We should sing as we're coming back. We should sing all together, because it's like, there's something about the harmony of us, right?
Yeah,
like,
I think we, at least in my church, we definitely have an attitude of that too. That like we should be bringing our full selves to worship and like doing it corporately, like there's something different. That it's not really a space for private devotion. Like you can have that, and that's beautiful, but it is a space, to offer corporate worship to God as the body of Christ. Like we do really like, we actually sing a lot of songs that are specifically invoking revelation with the throne room and the angels. That's just been like a very strategic choice that we've had. So I think there's all that to say, we have probably more than most churches modeled our worship off of the way it's been traditionally done, rather than this kind of concert. But interesting though that now, like as I'm saying that out loud, like that element of it, the group, the joining, the harmony, like that's present at concerts and at those big worship events, right? Which is why I think like people have some kind of sense of spirituality. Sure. There. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like you and I both know like folks in our lives that are like our age who just like go to so many concerts throughout the year. Yeah. I used to go to a lot of concerts. That's right. Yeah. You go to a lot of concerts. You go to concerts that tend to be a little more rough and tumble, I think. No? I used to more so. I haven't, not in a while, but yeah. But even like, if you think of like all the festivals and stuff like that kind of thing, I think, there's a lot of drugs and stuff going on as well. Sure. So that's part of it. But there's also
there is also that, like, again, there's something about joining your voice to someone else that, and so I guess I'm trying to connect the dots with like what has replaced.
Oh no,
and how
totally.
the
Like
worship
it
has
is
changed.
offering you a quasi-religious experience in some respect.
And like, if you're willing to pay for that, like, yeah, it seems almost like a no-brainer that some of these worship leaders would take advantage of that, because they're like,
there is something calming in how humans experience music, especially like music performed and sung corporately, because it's very like it really is a shortcut to like your emotional center kind of, and
you share it with other people.
Yeah, and you share with others, and there's something very powerful about it. And I think God made it that way, because I think worshiping him is kind of his idea. But yeah, like it's like there's common grace he's given us, and so like we can experience things which he designed in ways that still that fall short, I guess, that fall short of the glory of his glory. But that we can still like enjoy and find pleasure in, I guess. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. We were talking a bit about worship music. Yeah, I think again, this is just back to my main criticism of the way Hillsong just does their services. Is it does just seem very all geared that like this is a performance. Like I think if you were to go to one of their services, it would just feel like a performance, not like something that you participate because you sing along. But they have learned more, I think, from modern entertainment acts than they have from traditional Christian worship.
Yeah.
They just take their cues more from TED Talks and from concerts than they do from church services.
And by the sound of it, yeah, it's run more like a business than.
Yeah, it's very like pastor as CEO kind of a thing, and this is our multinational corporation, and we've got our different campuses, and I don't know. Like even the word campus kind of, I hate that term, because it's like this was called a parish,
yeah,
but now it's called a campus, which is borrowed from like schooling and business, the business world. We just import all this like secular stuff into our we replace our sacred things with secular things, and that, I don't know, I think some things are supposed to be sacred.
Yeah, I like the idea of campus if you actually have like a church that's associated with a school, and a hospital or something like that. You can be like, oh, we got a camp, or like some kind of outreach center or something. But yeah, when the idea that it's like, it's Silicon Valley or Nashville.
Maybe it's appropriate because our churches all look like like auditoriums made for like some business seminar or something. Like,
oh, don't get me started. Yeah, it changes. It changes what your like immediate association with that. You look at it and you have this like, it conjures up different images, right?
Yeah.
Immediately you look at like a neo-Gothic style church, and it's like there's no mistaking it, although that being said, some are getting repurposed now as they get as they're no longer be used, they're being turned into like condos or something. But
yeah, which is sad. But also the other thing about that is it's not like it's just a product of the time either. Like it's not, they don't just look uniquely like a church, like a sacred space, because of the architecture of their time. It's like if you look at other buildings created at that time, you would never mistake them for a church. Whereas like you could mistake a church now for like a high school, or you could mistake it for like a tech company's campus.
Right. That's right.
They have no distinctive look to them now. Like you can look at an average church and be like, that could be anything. That could be any office or any. So, yeah.
Do you think that with something like Hillsong and like this kind of scandal, financial, and they've had these other scandals, sexual scandals, that kind of stuff, abuse, like, what's my question? I guess like, what does it take to turn people off?
Yeah. What does it take to break a church? Right. Yeah, it's a great question.
Because I mean, obviously the Catholic Church has had many, many scandals over hundreds of years, right? And we've kind of been coming through in the last many decades, sexual abuse scandals. I mean, in Canada, we're still very much grappling with, residential schools and that sort of thing. It's taking a lot of work, and it has turned a lot of people off. And there's a lot of people who, have just declared like, I'm done with it, right?
Right.
And I mean, the benefit that like a mainline church has, though, whether it's Catholic or Protestant, is like a longer history, more establishment, to kind of like see it through. I always wonder about some of these newer churches.
Right. Will they last?
Non-denominational. Yeah. Like, are there actual like straws that can break the camel's back?
Yeah, I think there are to an extent. Like, I think I've from what I've heard, Hillsong New York City has shrunk down to like a very tiny, not tiny, but a fraction of what it was.
Like, what do you think? You think there's like still 1,000 people meeting?
No, I don't think there is.
No, really?
No.
In New York City?
No. I think it's less than that now from what I've seen and heard. But like, so I think these denominations or churches would shrink in size. I think probably very likely what happens, because there is a fair bit of autonomy at the local level. Some of them might join other church networks and kind of go from there. And eventually these churches will die because they'll stop appealing to the youth. and the youth can just go find another non-denominational church that they like better. That is like the sad thing about probably our current models. The denominational ties are just so weak. Like, you're not, if you generally like this kind of neo-charismatic, non-denominational church style, like, you can hop between them very easily, and there's not a ton of distinction really. All our websites have the same language on them. Everyone's reading the same books, listening to the same music. Style is pretty similar. So it'll be like generational appetites that probably shift it. But yeah, I definitely think Hillsong is more vulnerable though to this kind of a thing than the Catholic Church, because it is so tied to the appeal of its personalities.
Right.
Like, the individual pastors have a lot of pull in these churches, whereas like a Catholic church, it's like you're Catholic no matter what, and you're just going to go to the parish nearest to you that, well, he's probably nearest to you. Maybe you'll go to a different one because you like it a little more, but like, you're not going to travel 2 hours or an hour to go to another parish. You're going to find one that's reasonably local, and you're going to just stay there.
Unless you choose to, like I say, a lot of people choose to, disaffiliate and not be part of the church. But also, like, the decision around who your pastor is in the Catholic Church is made by the bishop. Mm-hmm. And it's not this situation of, the council or the leadership of the community hiring on, or, that it doesn't work that way. So I think there's also that sense of people just being more accustomed to, like, well, it's out of our hands. We've got Father so-and-so for right now, and in a couple of years we'll have somebody else. And this guy's not so good at preaching, but hey, he's pretty good at something else.
But I think that's probably, I don't know.
It's a mixed blessing.
Yeah, it's a mixed blessing. There's pros and cons of both, but I kind of think that there's something a little more pure about the Catholic way of doing it, just because, like, I think people can go to churches for the wrong reasons. And I think if you go to a parish and you don't particularly like the preaching, like, I've been to a couple of Catholic parishes, for example, where it's like, oh yeah, if I lived in this town, and I was Catholic, this would be the church I'd have to go to. And like, the preaching was not good. But that's not the only reason you go to the church. Like, you go to receive the sacraments, and it's like the sacraments are still getting delivered, or being administered there. Yeah.
What's funny though is, like, I've been talking with some people recently about this, and there is kind of a bit of it's a different kind of consumer. I won't call it consumerism because it's not really consumerism in like what we're talking about, where it's like, you know, Walmart style religion, you know. But there is this kind of like, and I've heard people talk about where it's like sacramental vending machine, you know, and for Catholic churches where it's like, you know, minimal obligation on my part. I'm not, you know, I'm not getting involved in the community. I'm not really getting to know people. I just like go.
Right.
I just like show up. It's my Sunday obligation. The
priest has no idea if you're like sinning horribly, like if you're beating your wife or
like even like what you do for work or like who your family is or whatever. It's just like, okay, I go. And even with sometimes the folks that are regularly practice like the sacrament of confession or, you know, or different, it's like, or like think of the sacraments of initiation that we have, you know, baptism, first communion, confirmation. Like a lot of folks, especially now in Ontario, this through the school system, it's been that way for many decades. It's kind of that whole thing of just like I say, like the vending machine kind of checking it off the list. Like, I got to get my kids to do this. I show up. What do we got to do? Fill out the forms, blah, blah, blah. And off you go, right?
I've found people that like lied about being themselves confirmed Catholics so that they could get their kids baptized. Like,
really?
It was a coworker from Brazil, I'm pretty sure, who told me that like his wife wasn't actually a confirmed Catholic, but like straight up lied about that so that they could have their child baptized.
Well, then you get in the school system, then you have that the other layer of teachers have to get reference, like a pastoral reference,
right,
to be able to teach in the system, right? So different school boards will have like a form, but again, it's kind of like if it's done really well, the idea is, you know, you sit down for maybe a couple conversations with the pastor, you get to know one another, you get involved in the church. Like that would be like at its best. But the way it usually goes is like, hey, my interview's on Tuesday or whatever. I need can you just sign this? And it's like, okay, sure. Like you're Catholic. Whatever.
Right.
So it's kind of, it kind of creates these weird like motivations for
perverse incentives.
There you go. Exactly. Perverse incentives for even like affiliating with your local church, right?
Huh.
So, yeah. I don't know.
Interesting. Well, should we take a break?
Let's do it. On the other side, we're going to talk about a new film that's sparking a revolution. Then sings my soul, Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
You seen the Jesus Revolution yet?
The Jesus Revolution? No, I've seen the trailer for it, and I know. Well, I'm familiar with Jonathan Rumi, of course.
Of course,
he is
Jesus himself.
That's kind of like it's kind of a wild career move, eh? Like that's very intentional.
To be oh yeah.
Well, like he played Jesus, and then like they come to him with the script, and they're like,
"Do you want to play a guy that looks like Jesus?"
Yeah. So, he's gonna kind of be like a modern day Jesus.
Yeah.
Like that's like the epitome of typecasting, isn't it?
Oh yeah, he is typecast at this point. He's gonna be like, well, you know what? It's actually good because I think he seems like a decent human being by all accounts. It's better than like Kevin Sorbo or like, you know, one of these Kirk Cameron.
Oh yeah.
You know, these, you know, the older generation of Christian movie stars.
But their stuff was not very good.
No, well, that's the thing. So that's the thing with Jesus Revolution. It's like actually a pretty big leap forward artistically, I think, for Christian movies. Yeah.
When did you go see it?
I went and watched it with my grandma a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she rang me up. She's like, Sam, I want to go see the Jesus Revolution. And I was like, Grandma, I want to go see the Jesus Revolution. It didn't even occur to me to ask her to go with me because like it was after church on Sunday. Some people from church told me to go see it. And I was like, okay, great. And I was like asking if anyone wanted to go and nobody was free. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll see it this week sometime. And then my grandma called me. So it was perfect. She loved it. She was over the moon.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Is it, is it a straight up drama? Is it comedy?
It's a drama, like, yeah, it's a drama. There's some funny parts to it, but it's like a his period piece retelling of a time and a place based on a true story.
It's based on a true story.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the guy, what's his name from Frasier?
Yeah,
He's from
Kelsey
Frasier, right?
Grammer.
Okay.
Yeah.
From what I saw in the trailer, he's a pastor.
Yeah, so he's based on a real guy. He's this pastor of Calvary Chapel, which is now a pretty big denomination in the States. Pretty big church movement.
Calvary Chapel.
Yeah, so the and I don't think this is totally accurate to real life, but he's basically pastoring this kind of stuffy church with a lot of old people in it. And then he's kind of criticizing the hippies, and then his daughter's like, well, what if you just never met a hippie, you never talked to one? And then she meets this guy, Jonathan Rumi's character, who's this wandering Jesus freak hippie guy, and he comes and meets the pastor and then starts attending the church and like makes an urgent plea basically that like, you are not reaching my generation because your doors are closed to us. Like that we are a generation, the hippies, right? They're all on LSD, they're sex, drugs, rock and roll, free love, all this. They're searching for something deeper and they're not finding it. They're finding this stuff to be empty. And so they're getting turned on to Jesus. And so basically he wins over this pastor, Pastor Chuck, and I won't spoil the rest, but that the Jesus revolution happens. So it was pretty good. Like it was genuinely an inspiring movie. It made me like less cynical, I guess, about the power of our kind of exuberant, very worship music focused kind of evangelical type of Christianity. It made me like kind of see the appeal and the beauty of it again, because it was these people that like were kind of lost and becoming found and like experiencing the love and forgiveness of Jesus in a way that I could connect with from like being a kid and meeting Jesus. So it was quite a beautiful movie. Like not perfect. There was
it's kind of like what we were talking about Hillsong in the first bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of the opposite. It's kind of the best side of that.
It was it showed off the good side of it because really this Jesus revolution, like this whole era, the Jesus freak era, the Jesus music, this is where the modern contemporary worship really stems from. Like the fact that like we are singing, basically pop songs in church as worship songs as instead of hymns. That transition really started in the 60s because these Jesus freaks were imitating the popular music of their day and they were just compelled to write their own songs, right? And so that gradually transformed the way church is done, for better or for worse. I mean, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with singing music in this style. I do think it has probably put an inordinate amount of focus on music and the ecstasy of music, but no, the movie was just was very, very well done. I teared up at a lot of points, particularly the baptism scene. Yeah, it was just really really life affirming stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like I just like Jonathan Rumi's like it seems like he's a genuinely positive guy, he's very uplifting. Like just he has
a real presence.
Yeah, it's like kind of an integrity that you kind of see at least from what you see on and off screen.
He does play like a slightly more complicated character in Jesus Revolution.
Okay.
I won't give it away, but like the character that was playing, like the actual guy in real life, had a very he had a colored ministry. His ministry had some things overshadow it.
Oh, I see.
You can all read up on it. I don't want to spoil it, ruin it for you, but
okay, I'm eager to watch it.
Yeah, I really encourage you to watch it. I would even think about seeing it again, maybe. I don't know.
I wonder if it's coming to, or if it already came to the Princess in cinema.
Well, I mean, it was at the Galaxy. It was at our bigger chains. Which, to be honest, that's the other thing about it. It made a lot of money. Like its budget was like 15 million, and I think it's made 45 million so far. Like it's tripled its budget at the box office. These kinds of movies don't typically get as wide of a release or make as much money, and But yeah, like I don't think I've been very cynical about Christian movies generally. And like I said, I don't think this is a perfect movie. I think there's some bits where you can tell they're really collapsing history and then also going for a little bit of cheap sentimentalism. But like it works. I think I described it to my friends as the Top Gun Maverick of Christian movies. It's the same. You get the same emotions watching it as you do during Top Gun Maverick. And at the end you walk out and you're kind of like, man, they pulled a lot of tricks on me there. They did a lot to like tug on my heartstrings and make me smile. And some of it was kind of cheap, but it worked.
I went through the prayer zone. Is that in the opening?
Yeah. That should be. I went to the prayer zone.
There's just Jesus on top of an aircraft carrier, blessing the planes.
Jesus with some aviators on. A mustache.
Man, oh man, yeah, no, it's good. It's good to see stuff like that kind of. Well, like even The Chosen, right? Like that. Yeah. The fact that it started crowdfunded and everything, and like it's on. I believe it's on Netflix now. Like it's been picked up, and it's like, I mean, it's not produced by them, but you know, it's just kind of had this appeal, you know, that people have said like, hey, we know the Jesus story, but we've never had a TV show that looks like a real TV show, right. You know, that is dramatic and is, you know, well acted, and the characters are complex and there's different sides to them, you know, that we might not have imagined. You know, I
think the funny thing watching some of these, like these actually well-made Christian pieces of media, it's just like, it's like, man, if I was like on the fence about Jesus, I'd be like in a church the next day after watching some of it. You know, like it would work on me. I think Jesus Revolution was like powerful enough that if someone was like genuinely sitting on the fence about Jesus, it might bring them off of it. Like it really does a good job of selling Christianity.
Well, I mean, there's the movie coming up about St. Padre Pio, right? The Shia LaBeouf. And
I've just seen the clip where you've seen the clip.
No,
say Christ is Lord. Oh, okay. I'll show you.
Okay, I gotta watch it. No, because he, like, I don't know, famously or infamously, like Shia LaBeouf, talk about a colored, checkered character. But by all accounts, and on the podcast and things he's been on, he went and lived with the monks to prepare for the role, and he calls himself a Catholic and is.
Hey, that's beautiful, man. God can change anybody.
Yeah, like he's really. Yeah, so I mean, you always worry with celebrity conversions.
Well, look at Kanye West.
Yeah,
you know,
that
can always happen.
You gotta be.
One minute you're praising the King of the Jews, and next minute you're saying
a Jewish conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable. But
hey, did you see Kanye watch 21 Jump Street and now he's not anti-Semitic anymore?
Really?
Because Jonah Hill's a Jew. he realized that not all Jews are bad after watching 21 Jump Street. Yeah.
Some are funny.
Yes.
Yeah. Funny Jews. That's it took him a while to realize.
Hey, Jews can be funny too.
Jews can be. I don't care who knows it.
Yeah.
I think Jews can be funny.
Well, Jesus was funny. We know this. So, and we know this from watching The Chosen.
That's a irreverent but very funny early Jim Carrey stand-up bit. You ever see that?
No.
Some of the early Jim Carrey stand-up is like hilarious, and he's going, I just love how if you're a spiritual religious guy, you got to stay focused. You can't lose your cool. Imagine Jesus on the cross going, oh man, you guys are gonna get it. Wait till my father hears about this.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
That's pretty. You know? Yeah. Well, I think in a generation of people that say they're spiritual but not religious, I think it's very cool to be not at all spiritual but very religious.
I like that. That's a good one. That's a good one. Actually, that's not good at all. We can see that God, you're moving a mighty river through the nations. when young and old will turn to Jesus. Fling wide you heavenly gates, prepare the way of the risen Lord. Open up the door and let the music play. Let the streets resound with singing. So